Chapter 1. The man behind the HR desk. Andy Nelson had never imagined his life would smell faintly of peppermint and sound like a perpetual Jingle Bell playlist. At 34, he had degrees from universities that made recruiters salivate, published research that earned him polite nods at conferences, and a resume that screamed, corporate ladder climber. Yet here he was, sitting behind a mahogany desk carved with holly leaves, in an office that overlooked the largest toy factory in the world, a factory no adult believed existed. He adjusted his tie, which had tiny snowflakes embroidered along the edge. It wasn't a fashion choice, it was a requirement. Dress code, festive but professional. That was the memo Santa himself had signed with a flourish and a ho-ho-ho. Andy sipped his coffee, his third cup before noon, and stared at the blinking cursor on his screen. The job posting read, clerical assistant needed. Must be detail-oriented, cheerful, and comfortable working in a high-volume environment. He deleted the last line. High-volume environment sounded too much like a euphemism for chaos, which, to be fair, it was. The elves were efficient, yes, but they were also dramatic. Last week, 2 departments had nearly gone to war over ribbon color allocation. Andy had mediated with the patience of a saint, or at least a man who knew that Santa was watching. He leaned back, rubbing his temples. Outside his frosted window, the elf city sparkled like a snow globe come to life. Tiny lampposts glowed, candy cane arches framed cobblestone streets, and laughter floated up like chimney smoke. It was absurdly beautiful. It was also absurdly secret. Andy's family thought he was in Alaska, working on a research team. It was a small lie, but easier than explaining that his boss was the big guy in red. He had no desire to find out what the inside of an asylum looked like. A knock at the door jolted him. Come in, he called. The door swung open, revealing Jingleton, chief elf of staffing, wearer of neon green suspenders, and perpetual thorn in Andy's side. Morning, Andy, Jingleton chirped, bouncing in like a caffeinated squirrel. How's the hiring going? Santa says we need someone by Friday or the gift wrap department will implode. Andy sighed. I'm working on it, but maybe next time. Don't let the last assistant quit mid-shift because someone called her insufficiently merry. Jingleton shrugged, bells jingling on his hat. Morale matters. Anyway, Santa's counting on you. Oh, and he said to remind you, Christmas is in 13 days. Andy pinched the bridge of his nose. Thanks, Jingleton. I'll keep that in mind. When the elf left, Andy stared at the blinking cursor again. 13 days. No pressure. He typed, must love Christmas. Then deleted it. Too obvious. He typed, ability to multitask. Then added, and handle occasional, unusual circumstances. That was as close as he could get to, you might meet talking reindeer. Speaking of which, a voice boomed from outside the window. Formation Alpha complete. Requesting feedback. Andy groaned. The reindeer were practicing aerial maneuvers again. He opened the window and shouted, looks great, Comet. Very synchronized. Ha, told you we nailed it. Comet preened midair while Blitzen muttered something about tightening the V. Andy shut the window and sat back down. This was his life now. Pep talks for reindeer, HR drama with elves, and a secret so big it could rewrite every childhood memory. And yet, as he stared at the snow swirling beyond the glass, a pang of loneliness tugged at him. He loved Christmas. He loved the magic. But magic didn't curl up beside you on the couch or laugh at your bad jokes. Magic didn't make you feel less alone. His phone buzzed. An email notification popped up. New application received. Andy clicked it, expecting another prank submission from someone who thought the listing was a joke. Instead, he froze. Name Holly Winters. Cover letter. I believe in making every season bright. I'm organized, adaptable, and I make a mean cup of cocoa. If you're looking for someone who loves Christmas as much as breathing, I'm your girl. Andy stared at the screen, a slow smile tugging at his lips. For the first time in weeks, the blinking cursor didn't feel like a deadline. Felt like a beginning. Chapter 2. A job posting gone wrong. Andy Nelson had learned 2 things during his tenure as head of HR at Santa's workshop. 1. Elves were allergic to ambiguity. 2. Santa's definition of urgent was roughly equivalent to the fate of Christmas depends on you. Both truths were currently glaring at him from his inbox. The job posting he'd crafted, carefully scrubbed of magical hints, had gone live at midnight. By 8 a.m., Andy had 237 applications. By 9, the number had doubled. By 10, Jingleton burst into his office like a peppermint tornado. Andy, the elf's suspenders practically vibrated with panic. What did you do? Andy blinked. Posted a job. Like you asked. Jingleton slapped a tablet onto Andy's desk. The screen displayed a social media feed exploding with hashtags. Hashtag Santa's hiring, hashtag elf life, and disturbingly, hashtag North Pole internship. Andy groaned. Oh no. Oh yes, Jingleton said, eyes wide. Humans think it's a publicity stunt. There's a TikTok dance called Hire Me Santa. It has choreography. Andy rubbed his temples. How did they even find it? I used the most boring phrasing possible. Jingleton scrolled dramatically. You wrote, unusual circumstances. Humans smell mystery like reindeer smell carrots. Andy muttered. I should have gone with occasional chaos. Too late now. Jingleton hopped onto a chair, bells jingling. Santa says fix it before the elves riot. They're already planning a protest march with candy cane signs. Andy stared. Over what? Over the possibility of humans stealing elf jobs. Jingleton lowered his voice. They're chanting our bows, our rights. It's getting ugly. Andy pushed back his chair. Okay, damage control. I'll pull the listing, sort the applications, and his computer pinged. Another application. Then another. Then 10 more in rapid succession. Jingleton peered over his shoulder. You're popular. Andy scrolled through names, skimming cover letters that ranged from enthusiastic to unhinged. One applicant claimed to have extensive experience in sleigh aerodynamics. Another offered a certificate in advanced cookie tasting. And then he saw her name again, Holly Winters. Her application sat like a calm island in a sea of chaos. No gimmicks, no weird claims, just competence wrapped in warmth. Andy clicked it open, rereading her words. I believe in making every season bright. I'm organized, adaptable, and I make a mean cup of cocoa. He smiled despite himself. Well, at least one person seems normal. Jingleton leaned in, squinting. Normal is overrated. Does she sparkle? Andy frowned. What? Sparkle? Jingleton repeated, as if Andy were dense. Joy quotient. Festive aura. Does she radiate holiday cheer? Andy closed the laptop. She radiates professionalism. Jingleton gasped. Boring. Andy shot him a look. Some of us like boring. Santa doesn't, Jingleton sang, hopping off the chair. He likes merry, bright, and slightly chaotic. Like me, Andy muttered. Lucky us. By noon, Andy had pulled the listing and sent a memo to Santa promising swift resolution. He also scheduled an interview with Holly Winters for the next day. Something about her tone intrigued him. Cheerful without being cloying, confident without arrogance. In a world where elves debated glitter density like it was a constitutional issue, Holly sounded refreshingly human. Andy leaned back, staring at the snow swirling outside his window. He imagined Holly walking through the workshop, eyes widening at conveyor belts stacked with teddy bears, at elves zipping past with clipboards and gumdrops. He imagined her laughing. Not the polite chuckle he got from colleagues at HR conferences, but real laughter, the kind that warmed a room. He shook himself. This was a job interview, not a rom-com montage. He had rules, professional boundaries, and a secret so big it could implode Christmas if mishandled. Still, as he drafted the interview email, Andy couldn't help adding a line he normally wouldn't. Looking forward to meeting you. The next morning, Andy arrived early, fueled by caffeine and mild panic. He'd reserved the neutral meeting room. No candy cane wallpaper, no animatronic snowmen, just a simple table and chairs. The last thing he needed was Holly spotting a singing nutcracker before he explained. Well, everything. 10 sharp, the door opened. And there she was. Holly Winters stepped in wearing a crimson coat dusted with snowflakes, her auburn hair tumbling over her shoulders like something out of a holiday commercial. Her smile was bright but not forced, and her eyes, warm hazel, sparked with curiosity. Mr. Nelson? She asked, voice lilting like sleigh bells without trying. Andy stood so fast his chair squeaked. Yes, Andy, please, come in. She shook his hand, firm and confident. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. My pleasure, Andy said, hoping he sounded professional and not like a man who'd forgotten how words worked. They sat. Andy launched into his practice spiel. So, Holly, tell me about your experience. She leaned forward, animated. I've worked in administrative roles for 8 years. Scheduling, inventory, customer service, you name it. I'm adaptable, quick to learn, and I thrive in high-energy environments. Andy smiled faintly. High energy? She has no idea. And what drew you to this position? Her grin widened. Honestly, the ad made me curious. Unusual circumstances? That's either code for toxic workplace or something interesting. I'm hoping for the latter. Andy swallowed. Interesting is one word for it. She laughed, and Andy felt something loosen in his chest. Well, I love Christmas, she added. Always have. If I can work somewhere that celebrates joy instead of quarterly reports, sign me up. Andy hesitated. If only you knew. We do value joy here. Her gaze flicked to the frosted window. Is that a sleigh? Andy stiffened. Outside, Comet and Blitzen were mid-practice, antlers glinting in the sun. He forced a casual tone. Decorative. Very authentic. Holly tilted her head, amused. Authentic enough to have reindeer? Andy coughed. Props department goes all out. She smiled like she didn't quite buy it, but let it go. Well, I'm intrigued. Andy cleared his throat. We'll be in touch soon. As Holly left, Andy exhaled slowly. She was sharp, observant, and if Santa had his way, and Santa always had his way, Holly Winters would be hired before Andy could finish his next cup of coffee, which meant Andy had approximately 24 hours to figure out how to keep the North Pole's biggest secret from imploding. Chapter 3. Enter Holly Winters. Andy Nelson had survived elf labor disputes, reindeer ego crises, and one memorable incident involving a rogue nutcracker army. But nothing, prepared him for the email that landed in his inbox at 7:03 a.m. Subject: Santa approved. Body: hire Holly Winters. Today. Ho ho ho. Andy stared at the screen, coffee halfway to his lips. Santa approved? He muttered aloud, as if saying it would make it less surreal. Jingleton popped into his office like a jack-in-the-box. Did you see? Did you see? Santa loves her. Says she's got the sparkle. Andy set down his mug. He's never even met her. Jingleton wagged a finger. Santa knows these things. It's like festive radar. Andy groaned. I haven't even finished the background check. Skip it. Jingleton sang, spinning in a circle. Santa says she's perfect. And when Santa says perfect, you say, welcome aboard. Andy pinched the bridge of his nose. Fine. But if she turns out to be a corporate spy, then we'll feed her to the gingerbread wolves, Jingleton chirped, utterly serious. Andy blinked. That's not a real thing, right? Jingleton grinned. Depends on the day. By 10, Holly Winters was officially hired. By 11, Andy was pacing his office, wondering how to explain the North Pole without sounding like a lunatic. He drafted 3 versions of the orientation speech. 1. Welcome to Santa's workshop. Please don't faint. 2. Everything you know about Christmas is true. Also, the reindeer talk. 3. Surprise. You're in a snow globe of insanity. None felt HR compliant. At noon, his phone buzzed. Holly had arrived. Andy straightened his tie, inhaled deeply, and stepped into the reception hall. A glittering expanse of marble floors, garlands, and a chandelier shaped like a snowflake. Holly stood near the desk, her crimson coat unbuttoned to reveal a green sweater that looked festive without trying too hard. She was chatting with the receptionist elf, who was nodding so vigorously his hat bells jingled like a warning system. Andy approached, summoning his most professional smile. Holly, welcome. She turned, her eyes lighting up. Andy, thank you for having me. Of course. He gestured toward the hallway. Let's start with a quick tour. Her gaze swept the room, lingering on the candy cane columns. This place is wow. Andy chuckled nervously. We like to keep things cheerful. Cheerful. Holly laughed. This is a Hallmark movie on steroids. Andy swallowed. If only you knew. They walked through the main corridor, passing doors labeled toy design, gift wrap innovation, and sleigh aerodynamics. Holly's heels clicked against the polished floor as she tried to take everything in. So, she said, what exactly does this company do? Andy hesitated. We manufacture specialty products. Specialty products? Her brow arched. Like toys. Andy coughed. Among other things. She grinned. You're very mysterious, Andy. He forced a smile. Occupational hazard. They turned a corner and nearly collided with an elf pushing a cart stacked with teddy bears wearing tiny tuxedos. Afternoon, Mr. Nelson, the elf chirped, then froze at the sight of Holly. His eyes widened. Oh, is this the human? Andy shot him a look that could melt ice. Delivery route, Sparkle. Now. Sparkle zipped away, bells jangling like tattletales. Holly blinked. Did he just call me the human? Andy laughed too loudly. Nickname. They love nicknames. She tilted her head, amused. Interesting culture. Culture, Andy thought grimly. That's one word for it. The tour continued into the production wing, where conveyor belts hummed and elves darted like caffeinated fireflies. Holly stopped every few steps, marveling at the precision, the color, the sheer scale of it all. This is incredible, she breathed. It's like a dream factory. Andy smiled despite his nerves. We take pride in our work. She glanced at him. You really love it here, don't you? Andy hesitated. It's unique. Her eyes softened. Unique can be wonderful. Before Andy could respond, a booming voice echoed from above. Formation Bravo complete. Commence victory lap. Andy froze. Oh no. Holly craned her neck. Through the skylight, 8 reindeers soared in perfect formation, antlers gleaming, harness bells ringing like triumphant trumpets. Holly gasped. Are those animatronics? Andy blurted. Very lifelike. One reindeer, Comet of course, banked low enough to press his muzzle to the glass and shout, looking sharp, HR guy. Andy's soul left his body. Holly stared. Did that reindeer just talk? Andy laughed weakly. Echo effect. Weird acoustics. Comet winked and shot skyward. Holly turned to Andy, eyes sparkling with suspicion and delight. Andy Nelson. What kind of company is this? Andy swallowed hard. The kind that values imagination. She grinned. Well, I'm in. Andy blinked. You're in. Absolutely. Her smile was radiant. Any place that hires talking reindeer is my kind of place. Andy stared at her, stunned. She wasn't running. She wasn't screaming. She was laughing, real, warm laughter that filled the corridor like music. And for the first time since he'd fainted on a pillow during his own orientation, Andy thought, maybe crazy isn't so bad. Chapter 4. The Elf City Tour. Andy Nelson had one goal for the day: survive without Holly Winters discovering that Santa's workshop was less quirky company and more magical metropolis. He was failing spectacularly. The moment Holly stepped into the atrium, her eyes widened at the sight of a peppermint fountain gurgling beside a marble staircase. "Is that candy?" she asked, voice tinged with awe. Andy cleared his throat. "Decorative. Very festive." Holly dipped a finger into the stream and tasted it before Andy could stop her. Her grin was pure delight. "Peppermint. You guys don't do anything halfway, do you?" Andy muttered. "We're big on commitment." The official plan was simple: a quick orientation, a tour of the non-magical sections, and then paperwork. But Santa, who had a talent for derailing Andy's plans with the precision of a sleigh landing, had insisted Holly see the Elf City. "She needs the full experience." Santa boomed that morning, his belly shaking like a bowl of jelly. "Show her the sparkle." Andy had tried to argue. "Sir, with respect, the sparkle involves sentient gingerbread and a choir of caroling snowmen." Santa winked. "Exactly." So now Andy was escorting Holly down a cobblestone street lined with candy cane lampposts, praying she wouldn't notice the reindeer practicing aerial maneuvers overhead or the elves staging a ribbon-color protest near the gumdrop fountain. Holly's boots crunched on the snow-dusted path as she turned in a slow circle, eyes wide. "This is incredible. It's like a storybook." Andy forced a smile. "We value immersive environments." "Immersive?" Holly laughed. "Andy, this is a city. Do your employees actually live here?" Andy hesitated. "Some do. Some." She gestured at a row of gingerbread cottages, smoke curling from their chimneys. "Those houses have gumdrop shingles." Andy swallowed. "Our architectural department is very creative." Holly grinned. "Creative is one word for it." They passed a bakery where an elf in a chef's hat waved cheerfully, holding a tray of steaming cocoa mugs. Holly waved back, charmed. "Everyone's so happy." Andy muttered, "It's in the job description." "What?" "Nothing." Halfway down the street, a commotion erupted near the fountain. A cluster of elves brandished candy cane signs reading, "Our bows, our rights," and chanting, "No more glitter quotas." Holly blinked. "Is that a protest?" Andy groaned inwardly. "Team building exercise." One elf spotted Andy and shouted, "Down with HR tyranny." Andy smiled tightly. "Great enthusiasm, folks. Keep it constructive." Holly bit her lip, clearly fighting laughter. "You run a tight ship," Andy muttered. "More like a leaky sleigh." They turned a corner, and Holly stopped dead. Ahead stretched the heart of Elf City, a plaza glittering with lights, a towering Christmas tree crowned with a star that pulsed like it had its own heartbeat, and a choir of snowmen harmonizing to jingle bells in perfect pitch. Holly whispered, "Andy, what is this place?" Andy opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. "Our seasonal morale hub." She stared at him, then burst out laughing. "You're terrible at lying." Andy flushed. "I'm not." "Andy." Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "There's a snowman singing bass." Andy sighed. "Fine. It's complicated." "Complicated." She stepped closer, her voice softening. "You can tell me." Andy hesitated. He'd kept this secret for years, lied to his family, mastered the art of deflection. But Holly's gaze was warm, steady, and he realized with a jolt trusting. Before he could speak, a voice boomed from above. "Incoming!" Andy looked up just in time to see a snowball hurtling toward his face. It hit with a wet thwack, exploding in a spray of glitter. Holly gasped, then laughed so hard she doubled over. "Oh my God. Are you okay?" Andy wiped glitter from his tie, glaring at the culprits. A squad of elves armed with snowball launchers. "Training exercise," one shouted cheerfully. Andy groaned. "I hate Tuesdays." Holly grinned, eyes dancing. "You know what? I think I love Tuesdays." By the time they reached the workshop gates, Andy was exhausted, glitter-streaked, and more conflicted than ever. Holly hadn't run. She hadn't screamed. She'd laughed. Real, joyous laughter that made the chaos feel less chaotic. And as she turned to him, cheeks flushed from the cold, Andy felt something shift. Something dangerous. Something wonderful. "So," Holly said, her smile warm enough to melt snow, "when do I get to meet the guy in the red suit?" Andy's heart stopped. "What?" She winked. "Come on, Andy. I'm not blind. This isn't a toy company. This is magic." Andy stared at her, words tangled in his throat. And for the first time, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, letting someone in wasn't the end of the world. Chapter 5. The Truth Under Twinkling Lights. Andy Nelson had always believed in damage control. It was the cornerstone of HR. Contain the chaos, smooth the edges, keep everyone from suing each other. But as he stood in the middle of the Elf City Plaza, glitter still clinging to his tie, he realized there was no controlling this. Holly Winters was looking at him like a woman who'd just stumbled into Narnia and was deciding whether to stay for tea. "Andy?" she said softly, her breath curling in the frosty air. "This isn't just a company, is it?" Andy opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Words failed him. His brain was a snow globe someone had shaken too hard. Before he could muster a coherent sentence, fate, or rather an overenthusiastic elf, intervened. A sleigh roared past the plaza, pulled by 8 reindeer in full harness, bells jingling like a Broadway overture. At the reins sat Santa Claus himself, his red coat blazing against the snow, his laughter booming like a holiday anthem. Ho! 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 Santa bellowed, waving as if this were the Macy's parade and not a classified operation. Andy, how's our new hire? Holly froze. Her eyes widened. Her jaw dropped. Is that? Andy groaned. Yes, Santa Claus. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. Andy sighed. Yes. Holly blinked rapidly, as if her brain were buffering. Like, the Santa Claus? Andy rubbed his temples. There's only one. Santa circled back, sleigh skidding to a stop with a flourish that would make NASCAR jealous. He hopped down, boots crunching on snow, and strode toward them with the confidence of a man who'd never doubted his own legend. Holly Winters, Santa boomed, his blue eyes twinkling like starlight. Welcome to the team. Holly made a strangled sound that might have been thank you, or what is happening. Santa enveloped her hand in both of his grip warm and firm. We're thrilled to have you. Andy says you're sharp as a candy cane and twice as sweet. Andy muttered. I did not say that. Santa winked. He thought it. Holly stared at Andy, then at Santa, then at the reindeer, who were currently debating formation angles in what sounded suspiciously like military jargon. This is real, she whispered. This is actually real. Andy exhaled. Yes. Holly laughed, a bright, incredulous sound that rang through the plaza like sleigh bells. Oh my God. I thought you were running some kind of immersive holiday startup. But this is magic, Santa supplied cheerfully. The real deal. Holly turned to Andy, eyes shining. You've been working for Santa Claus. Andy nodded, resigned. For 6 years. And you didn't tell anyone? Andy shrugged. People tend to question your sanity when you say your boss delivers toys to every child on Earth. Holly laughed again, clutching her coat like she needed something solid to hold on to. This is insane. Andy managed a weak smile. Welcome to my Tuesday. Santa clapped Andy on the back hard enough to rattle his teeth. Good work, son. I knew she had the sparkle. Andy muttered. You also knew she'd find out before orientation. Santa's grin was pure mischief. Where's the fun in secrets? With that, Santa vaulted back into the sleigh, shouted something about reindeer drills, and soared into the sky, leaving a trail of stardust and Andy's shredded composure behind. Holly watched until the sleigh vanished into the clouds, then turned to Andy, her expression a mix of wonder and amusement. So what now? Andy swallowed. Now I explain. They found a bench near the gumdrop fountain, its surface dusted with snow. Holly sat, still smiling like someone who'd just been handed the universe's best punchline. Start from the beginning, she said. And don't leave out the talking reindeer. Andy sighed, sinking beside her. Okay, the short version. Santa's real. The elves are real. The reindeer are real, and yes, they talk. This workshop is the largest toy factory in the world. We handle everything from design to distribution. And my job is HR. Holly tilted her head. You hire elves. And humans, Andy said. Mostly for clerical roles. Elves aren't big on spreadsheets. She laughed softly. I can't believe this. Andy gave her a wry look. Neither could I. I fainted during my orientation. Her grin widened. Seriously. On a pillow, Andy admitted. They keep them handy for shock victims. Holly laughed so hard she nearly toppled off the bench. That's amazing. Andy found himself smiling, despite the chaos. Glad you're enjoying my humiliation. I'm enjoying all of this, Holly said, her voice warm. It's wonderful. Andy blinked. Wonderful. She nodded, eyes shining. I've always loved Christmas. The lights, the music, the feeling that people are kinder for a little while. And now, knowing it's real, that there's magic behind it, that's beautiful. Andy stared at her, something soft and dangerous stirring in his chest. Most people would have bolted. Holly was glowing. You're taking this well, he said quietly. She smiled. Andy, I applied because I wanted something different, something joyful. I think I found it. Andy swallowed hard. For the first time in years, the secret didn't feel like a burden. It felt like a gift because he was sharing it with someone who understood. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, snowflakes drifting like lazy confetti. Holly tilted her head, studying him. So, what's next? Andy cleared his throat. Next, you meet your team and sign about 50 confidentiality agreements. She grinned. Fair enough. Andy hesitated, then added softly, Holly, thank you. For what? For not running. Her smile was gentle. Why would I run from magic? Andy looked at her, really looked at her, the warmth in her eyes, the curve of her smile, and felt something click into place, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Chapter 6, Snowball Diplomacy. Andy Nelson had handled onboarding for hundreds of elves. He'd mediated disputes over gumdrop distribution, refereed arguments about glitter density, and once negotiated a ceasefire in the Great Ribbon War of 2022. But onboarding Holly Winters? That was a whole new level of chaos. Because Holly wasn't just a new hire. She was human. And elves, bless their merry little hearts, were dramatic about humans. Andy discovered this the moment he walked Holly into the gift wrap department. The room was a kaleidoscope of color. Ribbons cascading from ceiling racks, paper rolls stacked like candy-colored towers, and elves darting everywhere like caffeinated hummingbirds. At the center stood Jingleton, chief elf of staffing, wearing a sash that read, "Welcome, Holly," in glitter letters. "Attention," Jingleton shouted, leaping onto a table. Bells jingled like an alarm system. "Our new human has arrived." Every elf froze. Then, as one, they erupted into cheers so loud Andy winced. Holly blinked, startled. "Wow, that's enthusiastic." Andy muttered, "Brace yourself." The elves swarmed, peppering Holly with questions. "Do humans really eat fruitcake? Can you whistle jingle bells backward? Is your hair naturally that shiny, or is it a spell?" Holly laughed, holding up her hands. "One at a time." Andy stepped in, his HR instincts kicking hard. "Okay, folks, let's keep it professional. Snowball fight," an elf yelled. Andy froze. "What?" Too late. A snowball whizzed past his ear, exploding in a puff of glitter. Another followed, then another. Within seconds, the department was a battlefield of sparkling chaos. Andy groaned. "I hate Thursdays." Holly ducked behind a ribbon rack, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. "Is this normal?" Andy crouched beside her, brushing glitter from his tie. "Define normal." She grinned, eyes dancing. "You know what? I think I love it." Andy stared at her, stunned. Most humans would have bolted. Holly was glowing, cheeks flushed, hair dusted with glitter, laughter ringing like sleigh bells, and Andy felt something dangerous stir in his chest. The snowball fight escalated into what Jingleton called team bonding. Holly joined in, her aim surprisingly accurate. Andy took a hit to the shoulder, then retaliated, earning a cheer from the elves. By the time the glitter settled, Holly was officially accepted. Jingleton declared it with a dramatic flourish. "She's one of us now." Holly curtsied, grinning, honored to join the ranks. Andy smiled despite himself. "Glad you survived initiation." She shot him a playful look. "Survived? I dominated." Andy chuckled, warmth spreading through him like cocoa on a cold night. He'd worried Holly wouldn't fit in. Instead, she was thriving, laughing with elves, joking about ribbon politics, radiating joy like she'd been born for this world. And Andy was in trouble. Later, as they walked back to the main hall, Holly glanced at him, her expression soft. "You know, Andy, this place is incredible." Andy shrugged, trying for casual. "It's unique. It's magical," she corrected gently. "And so are you." Andy blinked. "Me?" She smiled. "You've kept this secret for years. Managed all this chaos. That takes strength." Andy swallowed hard, words tangling in his throat. Compliments weren't his strong suit, especially when they came from someone whose smile made his heart trip over itself. "Just doing my job," he said finally. Holly's eyes sparkled. "Well, you're very good at it." Andy looked away, pretending to study a garland. If he stared at her any longer, he might say something reckless, like how her laugh was his new favorite sound. That night, Andy sat in his office, paperwork spread across his desk. He should have been drafting Holly's confidentiality agreements. Instead, he was replaying the way she'd laughed during the snowball fight, the way her eyes had lit up when Santa called her perfect. He was falling for her, fast, hard, and in the most inconvenient place on Earth. Because dating in the North Pole? That wasn't in the HR manual. Chapter 7. Reindeer with Relationship Advice. Andy Nelson had reached a new low in his professional life, seeking dating advice from reindeer. It wasn't intentional. He'd gone to the stables to clear his head, hoping the crisp air and scent of pine would help him focus on Holly's onboarding paperwork instead of Holly's laugh. But Comet had other plans. "HR guy." Comet bellowed the moment Andy stepped inside. "You look troubled." Andy groaned. "I'm fine." Blitzen snorted from his stall. "You're lying. Humans always get that look when they're lovesick." Andy froze. "I'm not lovesick." Comet crowed, prancing in place. "Who's the lucky doe?" Andy rubbed his temples. "She's not a doe. She's a colleague." Blitzen smirked. "Colleague? Huh? That's reindeer code for, I'd share my carrots with her." Andy muttered, "I hate this conversation." Comet leaned over the stall door, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Listen, HR guy, you need strategy. Romance is like formation flying. Precision, timing, and a little flair." Andy stared. "You're comparing dating to aerial maneuvers?" "Exactly." Comet puffed out his chest. "Step 1. Establish dominance." Andy blinked. "Dominance? Show her you're the alpha buck," Comet said solemnly. "Flex those antlers, metaphorically." Blitzen rolled his eyes. "Ignore him." Step 2. Gifts. Females love gifts. Andy sighed. She works in a toy factory. Gifts aren't exactly scarce. Then make it personal, Blitzen advised. Something thoughtful, like a hoof print. Andy stared. A hoof print. Blitzen shrugged. Works for us. Andy groaned. This is useless. Comet grinned. Fine, last tip. Confidence. Strut like you own the sleigh. Andy muttered. I don't own the sleigh. Details. Comet waved a hoof. Just don't trip over your own hooves, feet. Andy buried his face in his hands. Why am I listening to you? Because we're experts, Comet said smugly. 8 centuries of romantic wisdom. Blitzen snorted. You've been single for 8 centuries. By choice. Comet snapped. Andy sighed, ready to escape before they suggested serenading Holly with carols. But fate, because fate had a twisted sense of humor, intervened. Andy. He froze. Slowly, he turned. Holly stood in the doorway, cheeks pink from the cold, auburn hair tumbling over her shoulders. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. Did I just hear something about antlers? Andy's soul left his body. Holly. Hi. I was just checking on employee morale. Comet winked. We were giving him dating tips. Andy hissed. Comet. Holly laughed, stepping closer. Dating tips? From reindeer. Blitzen smirked. Best in the business. Holly grinned, eyes dancing. I'm intrigued. What's the advice? Andy stammered. It's not relevant. Comet puffed out his chest. Step 1, dominance. Step 2, gifts. Step 3, strut like you own the sleigh. Holly laughed so hard she nearly doubled over. Oh my God. Andy, are you taking notes? Andy flushed crimson. Absolutely not. She tilted her head, teasing. So, who's the lucky woman? Andy's brain short-circuited. No one. Her smile was pure mischief. Sure. Andy swallowed hard, desperate to change the subject. How's your first week? Holly's grin softened. Amazing, chaotic, magical, and now, educational. Andy groaned. Please forget everything you heard. She winked. No promises. As Holly left, still laughing, Andy slumped against the stall door, heart pounding like a drumline. Comet nudged him with a smug grin. You're welcome. Andy glared. You've ruined my life. Blitzen snorted. Kid, your life just got interesting. Andy muttered. That's what I'm afraid of. Later, back in his office, Andy stared at Holly's file, his mind replaying her laughter, her teasing smile, the way she'd said magical, like it was the highest compliment. He was falling for her, fast, hard, and in the most inconvenient place on earth. And if Comet was right about confidence, Andy was doomed. Chapter 8. The Christmas Gala disaster. Andy Nelson had survived elf protests, glitter explosions, and unsolicited reindeer dating seminars. But nothing prepared him for the annual Christmas Gala. The gala was the North Pole's answer to the Oscars, a glittering spectacle of lights, music, and enough sugar to send an entire continent into cardiac arrest. Elves wore sequined tunics, reindeer strutted like runway models, and Santa presided from a throne carved out of ice, looking like the benevolent emperor of joy. And he hated it. Not because he disliked parties, though he did, but because the gala was a minefield of HR nightmares. Last year, an elf spiked the cocoa with eggnog concentrate, and half the toy design team ended up singing carols from the roof. Andy spent 3 hours negotiating their safe descent. This year, he had a new problem, Holly Winters. She was attending. She was dazzling. And Andy was in trouble. He spotted her the moment he walked into the ballroom. Holly stood near the peppermint fountain, wearing a deep green dress that shimmered like pine needles dusted with frost. Her auburn hair tumbled in loose waves, catching the glow of fairy lights. She laughed at something Jingleton said, and Andy felt his pulse trip over itself. Comet's voice echoed in his head. Confidence. Strut like you own the sleigh. Andy squared his shoulders, adjusted his tie, and approached, carefully, like a man navigating a field of mistletoe grenades. Holly, he said, hoping his voice sounded casual and not like he'd swallowed a sleigh bell. She turned, her smile lighting up the room. Andy, you clean up well. Andy managed a weak grin. You look incredible. Her cheeks flushed, and Andy's brain short-circuited. Compliment delivered. Mission accomplished. Abort before you say something stupid. But Holly tilted her head, eyes warm. Dance with me. Andy blinked. Dance? She laughed softly. It's a gala, Andy. There's music. There's a floor. Come on. Before he could protest, she took his hand, warm, steady, and led him to the center of the room. The orchestra struck up a waltz, and Andy realized 2 things. 1. He hadn't danced since his cousin's wedding in 2014. 2. Holly fit against him like she belonged there. They moved slowly, awkwardly at first, then more smoothly as Holly guided him with gentle confidence. Her laughter was soft, her eyes bright, and Andy felt the world narrow to the space between them. You're not bad, she teased. Andy chuckled. You're very forgiving. Her smile softened. You're very unexpected. Andy blinked. Unexpected. She nodded. You're smart, funny, and you work for Santa Claus. That's quite a resume. Andy swallowed hard, words tangling in his throat. He wanted to tell her everything. How her laugh made the chaos bearable. How her presence felt like the first sip of cocoa after a long winter's day. But before he could speak, fate intervened. The explosion was spectacular. It started with a pop, followed by a hiss, and then a glitter bomb detonated near the stage, showering the ballroom in sparkling chaos. Elves shrieked. Reindeer ducked. Santa roared with laughter. Andy froze. Oh no! Holly blinked, glitter clinging to her lashes. What was that? Andy groaned. Prototype malfunction. Because of course the toy design team had decided to unveil their latest creation, a self-decorating Christmas tree, during the gala. And of course it had exploded like a festive grenade. The tree was now spewing tinsel like a fire hose, its branches spinning wildly as ornaments launched across the room like tiny missiles. Take cover! Jingleton screamed, diving under a table. Andy cursed under his breath. Not again. Holly grabbed his arm. What do we do? Andy opened his mouth to say run. But Holly was already moving, darting toward the stage with the speed of someone who'd grown up dodging snowballs. She snatched a garland, looped it around the tree's trunk, and yanked hard. The tree toppled with a crash, ornaments scattering like marbles. The room fell silent, then erupted into cheers. Holly straightened, glitter sparkling in her hair, and grinned at Andy. Crisis averted. Andy stared at her, stunned. You just saved Christmas. She laughed. Hardly. Just a tree. Andy shook his head, all flooding his chest. You're amazing. Her smile softened. You're not so bad yourself. And before Andy could think, before he could second guess, he reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Later, as the gala wound down and elves swept up tinsel, Andy walked Holly to the balcony overlooking the snowy expanse. The night was clear, stars glittering like diamonds scattered across velvet. Holly leaned against the railing, her breath curling in the cold, her eyes reflecting the lights below. This place, she whispered. It's magic. Andy swallowed hard. So are you. She turned, her gaze locking with his, and for a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Andy wanted to kiss her. God, he wanted to, but he hesitated, fear and hope warring in his chest. Holly smiled gently. Andy, yes, stop overthinking. And then she kissed him, soft, warm, sweet as peppermint. Andy's heart soared like a sleigh breaking through clouds. Chapter 9. A kiss under the northern lights. Andy Nelson had never been nervous around reindeer before. Sure, they were chatty, egotistical, and occasionally prone to unsolicited motivational speeches, but they were predictable. Holly Winters, on the other hand? Holly was a wild card. A beautiful, auburn-haired, peppermint-scented wild card who had kissed him under a chandelier of fairy lights and left his brain short-circuited. Now, 2 days after the gala, Andy was standing on the snowy training grounds, watching Comet and Blitzen harness up for sleigh practice, and wondering if his heart would ever beat at a normal pace again. HR guy, Comet bellowed, antlers gleaming under the starlight. You look tense. Andy muttered. I'm fine. Blitzen snorted. You're vibrating like a candy cane in a blender. Andy shot them a look. Can we not? Comet grinned. We heard about the gala. Andy froze. What? Word travels fast, Blitzen said smugly. Elves talk. Reindeer listen. You kissed the human. Andy flushed crimson. That's not public information. Comet winked. Kid, nothing's private in the North Pole. Andy groaned. I hate this place. Before he could escape, Holly appeared at the edge of the training field, bundled in a crimson coat, cheeks pink from the cold. Andy's pulse spiked like a sleigh hitting turbo. Andy, she called, waving. Santa said you'd be here. Andy swallowed hard. Holly, hi. She smiled, eyes sparkling like frost-kissed stars. Santa wants me to observe sleigh drills. Something about immersive onboarding. Andy muttered. Of course he does. Comet pranced forward. Welcome aboard, Holly. Ready for the ride of your life. Holly laughed. Ride. Blitzen smirked. Santa said you're joining the practice run. Andy stiffened. Wait, what? Comet winked. Orders from the big guy. Andy turned to Holly, panic rising. You don't have to. I'd love to, she said, her smile warm enough to melt snow. Unless you think I'll slow you down. Andy's brain short-circuited again. No. I mean yes. I mean fine. Comet grinned. Romantic sleigh ride under the northern lights. Classic move, HR guy. Andy hissed. Comet. Holly tilted her head, amused. Romantic. Andy flushed. Ignore him. She laughed softly. I'm not sure I want to. Minutes later, Andy and Holly were bundled in the sleigh, blankets tucked around them as Comet barked commands like a drill sergeant. Formation Alpha. Hooves high. Bells loud. The sleigh lurched forward, gliding across the snow before lifting into the air. Holly gasped, clutching Andy's arm as the ground fell away. Oh my God, she whispered. We're flying. Andy swallowed hard, resisting the urge to wrap his arm around her shoulders. Yeah. The sleigh soared higher, cutting through the crisp night air. Below, the elf city glittered like a jewel box. Above, the northern lights unfurled in ribbons of green and violet, shimmering like celestial silk. Holly stared, eyes wide, lips parted in wonder. Andy, this is beautiful. Andy looked at her, really looked at her. The glow of the aurora reflected in her eyes, the wind teasing strands of her hair, and felt something shift inside him. Something deep, something undeniable. Holly, he said softly. She turned, her gaze locking with his, and for a heartbeat, the world held its breath. And then Comet ruined everything. HR guy, the reindeer bellowed. Now's your chance. Kiss her before we hit turbulence. Andy's soul left his body. Comet. Holly laughed, cheeks flushed. Is this normal? Andy groaned. Define normal. Blitzen chimed in. Do it, kid. Northern lights are prime romance optics. Andy buried his face in his hands. I hate this place. Holly touched his arm gently. Andy. He looked up, heart pounding. She smiled, warm and steady. Ignore them. And then she kissed him. Soft, sweet, perfect. The reindeer hooped like a football team scoring a touchdown. Bells jingled. Someone shouted, Mission accomplished. Andy didn't care. Because Holly's lips were on his, and the world was nothing but starlight and snow and the taste of peppermint. When they finally pulled apart, Holly laughed, breathless. Well, that was magical. Andy managed a shaky smile. Yeah. Comet winked. Best sleigh drill ever. Andy groaned. I'm filing a complaint. Holly grinned. With HR. Andy chuckled, warmth flooding his chest. Exactly. As the sleigh glided back toward the glittering city, Andy realized something. He wasn't afraid anymore. Not of secrets. Not of chaos. Not of falling. Because he already had. Chapter 10. The big decision. Andy Nelson had always thought the North Pole was immune to heartbreak. After all, it was the happiest place on Earth. Peppermint fountains, caroling snowmen, reindeer with egos the size of sleighs. But as he sat in his office staring at Holly Winter's file, he realized joy didn't cancel out fear. Because Holly had a choice to make. And Andy wasn't sure he could handle her answer. It started that morning with an email from Santa's personal assistant, an elf named Twinkle who typed exclusively in Comic Sans subject. Opportunity for Holly Winters. Body, her old employer reached out. They want her back. Big promotion. Big salary. Santa says let her decide. Ho ho ho. Andy read it 3 times, hoping the words would rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. They didn't. Holly had been here barely 2 weeks. 2 magical, chaotic, glitter-streaked weeks that had turned Andy's world upside down. He'd kissed her under fairy lights. He'd kissed her under the northern lights. He'd kissed her so many times in his imagination he was starting to worry about his sanity. And now she might leave. He found her in the break room, sipping cocoa and laughing with Jingleton, who was explaining the finer points of ribbon diplomacy. Holly looked radiant, hair tumbling over her shoulders, cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes sparkling like frost-kissed stars. Andy's chest tightened. Hey, he said, trying for casual. She turned, her smile warm enough to melt snow. Andy, want some cocoa? He managed a weak grin. Sure. Jingleton winked and scampered off, bells jingling like tattletales. Andy sat across from Holly, wrapping his hands around the steaming mug like it could anchor him. So, he began, voice careful. Twinkle forwarded me something. About your old job. Holly's smile faltered. Oh, Andy swallowed hard. They want you back. Big promotion. Big salary. She nodded slowly. I saw the email. Andy forced the words out. What are you thinking? Holly stared into her cocoa, her expression thoughtful. It's a lot. I worked hard for that job. For years. And now they're offering everything I thought I wanted. Andy's heart thudded painfully. And now? She looked up, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment, Andy saw something soft, something uncertain. Now? I'm not sure. Andy exhaled, relief and dread tangling in his chest. Why not? Holly smiled faintly. Because everything I thought I wanted feels different now. Andy's pulse spiked. Different how? She hesitated, then said softly, because of this place. Because of you. Andy's breath caught. Words tangled in his throat, desperate to spill out. Stay. Please stay. I need you. But before he could speak, the door burst open. HR guy. Andy groaned. Comet, not now. The reindeer pranced in, antlers festooned with mistletoe. Santa wants you in his office. Urgent. Andy muttered. Of course he does. Holly smiled, amused. Go. I'll be here. Andy nodded, heart pounding, and followed Comet down the hall, praying Santa's definition of urgent didn't involve another glitter explosion. Santa's office was a cathedral of cheer, walls lined with toy prototypes, a fireplace roaring beneath stockings embroidered with elf names, and Santa himself behind a desk carved from ice, looking like the benevolent emperor of joy. Andy, Santa boomed, his belly shaking like a bowl of jelly. Sit. Andy sat, bracing for impact. Santa leaned forward, eyes twinkling. Holly got an offer. Andy sighed. I know. Santa grinned. So what are you going to do about it? Andy blinked. Do about it? Santa slapped the desk. You like her. Andy flushed crimson. That's not relevant. Santa roared with laughter. Ho ho ho. It's very relevant. Christmas runs on joy, Andy. And you've got joy written all over your face. Andy groaned. Sir, Santa wagged a finger. Listen to me, son. Life's too short for maybes. Tell her how you feel. Before she packs her bags. Andy swallowed hard. And if she leaves anyway? Santa's smile softened. Then at least you'll know you tried. But between you and me, he winked. I think she's already home. Andy stared, hope flickering like a candle in his chest. You really think so? Santa chuckled. I don't think. I know. Andy left the office with his heart pounding like a drumline. He was going to do it. He was going to tell Holly everything. How her laugh made the chaos bearable. How her smile felt like the first sip of cocoa after a long winter's day. How he couldn't imagine this place without her. And if she left, at least he'd go down swinging. He found her on the balcony overlooking the snowy expanse, the northern lights unfurling above like ribbons of green and violet. Holly turned as he approached, her breath curling in the cold, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Andy, she said softly. Everything okay? Andy swallowed hard. No, and yes, and no. She smiled gently. That's clear. He laughed shakily. Holly, I need to say something. She tilted her head, waiting. Andy took a breath, his heart hammering. Stay. Her eyes widened. Andy, stay, he repeated, voice rough. Not because of the job. Not because of Santa. Because of me. Because He broke off, then pushed through. I'm falling for you. Fast. Hard. And I don't want to stop. Silence stretched, filled only by the whisper of snow. Then Holly smiled. A smile that lit up the night like the aurora itself. Andy Nelson, she said softly. You're terrible at subtlety. Andy's breath caught. Is that a yes? She stepped closer, her eyes warm, steady. It's a yes. And then she kissed him, soft, sweet, perfect, while the northern lights danced above and the world held its breath. Chapter 11. Christmas Eve Chaos. Christmas Eve at the North Pole was not for the faint of heart. Andy Nelson had learned this his first year on the job, when a conveyor belt jam nearly delayed Santa's departure, and Andy spent 3 hours elbow-deep in wrapping paper like a man wrestling a festive octopus. But this year was different, because Holly Winters was here, and Andy was determined to keep everything running smoothly, not just for Christmas, but for her. The workshop buzzed like a hive of holiday madness. Elves zipped between stations, shouting inventory counts over the hum of machinery. Reindeer strutted in formation drills, antlers gleaming under the glow of fairy lights. Santa's booming laughter echoed from the sleigh bay as he supervised loading operations like a general preparing for battle. Andy stood in the center of it all, clipboard in hand, heart pounding. Okay, team, he called, projecting his best HR authority. Final checks. No shortcuts. No glitter grenades. And for the love of cocoa, keep the nutcrackers away from the control panels. Jingleton saluted with a candy cane. HR guy. Andy groaned. That's not, never mind. Holly appeared at his side, bundled in a crimson coat, her auburn hair tucked under a knit cap. She looked radiant, cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes sparkling like frost-kissed stars. Andy's pulse spiked like a sleigh hitting turbo. Reporting for duty, she said, grinning. Santa said you needed extra hands. Andy swallowed hard. You sure? It's chaos out here. She laughed. Andy, I survived a glitter explosion and a sleigh ride with reindeer commentary. I think I can handle chaos. Andy chuckled, warmth flooding his chest. Fair point. They dove into the fray together, checking gift manifests, rerouting elves, and calming a minor crisis when the cookie department staged a walkout over frosting ratios. Holly handled it like a pro, negotiating with diplomacy and charm that left the elves cheering and Andy staring like a man who just witnessed a miracle. You're amazing, he said quietly as they left the cookie station. Holly smiled, eyes warm. You're not so bad yourself. Andy swallowed hard, resisting the urge to kiss her right there in the middle of the gumdrop aisle. Later, he promised himself. After the chaos. After Christmas. But fate had other plans. Because just as the sleigh was being loaded, a rogue elf named Sparkle decided to improve efficiency by rerouting the gift chute. The chute jammed. The jam triggered a chain reaction. And suddenly, the sleigh bay was a blizzard of toys, ribbons, and panicked elves. Andy cursed under his breath. Not now. Holly grabbed his arm. What do we do? Andy scanned the chaos, brain racing. We need to clear the chute before Santa's departure window closes. Holly nodded, eyes blazing with determination. Show me. They sprinted to the chute, dodging airborne teddy bears and rogue nutcrackers. Andy yanked open the access panel, revealing a tangle of gears clogged with ribbon. Holly didn't hesitate. She rolled up her sleeves, grabbed a wrench, and dove in like a woman possessed. Left gear. Andy shouted over the din. Got it. Holly grunted, twisting hard. The gears groaned, then spun free. The chute roared back to life, gifts cascading into the sleigh like a waterfall of cheer. The elves erupted into cheers. Santa bellowed, "Ho ho ho! That's teamwork." Andy exhaled, adrenaline crashing through him. Holly straightened, glitter streaking her hair, and grinned. Crisis averted. Andy stared at her, awe flooding his chest. "You just saved Christmas." She laughed. "Again? I'm starting to think this is a pattern." Andy smiled, heart pounding. "Holly." But before he could speak, Santa clapped him on the back hard enough to rattle his teeth. "Load complete. Time to roll." The sleigh bay erupted into cheers as Santa climbed aboard, reindeer prancing like champions. Holly turned to Andy, her eyes shining. "Go. You've got a big night." Andy swallowed hard. "Stay with me. After the launch." Her smile was soft, steady. "Always." Minutes later, Andy stood on the balcony overlooking the snowy expanse, watching the sleigh soar into the starlit sky. The northern lights shimmered above, casting ribbons of green and violet across the world. Holly stepped beside him, her breath curling in the cold, her hand finding his. "Beautiful," she whispered. Andy looked at her, really looked at her. The glow of the aurora reflected in her eyes, the warmth of her hand in his, and felt something click into place. Not fear, not doubt. Chapter 12. Love in the Workshop. The North Pole was a symphony of controlled chaos on Christmas morning. Wrapping stations hummed like engines, conveyor belts rattled under mountains of toys, and elves darted everywhere with the manic energy of creatures who'd consumed their body weight in sugar cookies. Bells jingled, cocoa steamed, glitter floated through the air like festive pollen. Andy Nelson stood in the middle of it all, clipboard in hand, pretending to check inventory while his heart staged a full-scale rebellion. Because Holly Winters was here, laughing with Jingleton, hair dusted with snow, cheeks flushed from the cold, and Andy couldn't keep pretending he was just her boss. Not after the gala. Not after the sleigh ride under the northern lights. Not after she'd said always. He had to tell her. Now, before the moment slipped away like a sleigh on ice. "Holly!" he called, weaving through a maze of ribbon spools and gumdrop crates. She turned, her smile lighting up the room like a string of fairy lights. "Andy, you survived the cookie strike." Andy chuckled, breathless. "Barely." She laughed, warm and easy, and Andy felt his resolve harden like frozen cocoa. No more waiting. No more maybe. He was going to do this, even if the elves staged a glitter coup mid-sentence. "Holly," he began, voice low. "Can we talk?" Her brows lifted, curious. "Sure." Before Andy could lead her somewhere private, Jingleton popped up like a jack-in-the-box, bells jingling like tattletales. "Attention, everyone. HR guy's making a move." Andy froze. Jingleton. Too late. The elves erupted into cheers, forming a circle around them like a stadium crowd. Someone produced pom-poms. Someone else started chanting, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." Andy groaned. "I hate this place." Holly laughed so hard she nearly doubled over. "Oh my God." Andy rubbed his temples. "Ignore them." She grinned, eyes dancing. "Not sure I can." The chanting grew louder. Glitter cannons fired. A nutcracker band struck up a dramatic drumroll. Andy realized privacy was a lost cause, and maybe that was okay. Because Holly was looking at him, her smile softening, her eyes warm and steady, and Andy thought, to hell with subtlety. He took a breath, heart pounding like a drumline. "Holly, you've turned my world upside down. In the best way. I thought this job was crazy enough, but then you showed up and made it magic." Her laughter faded, replaced by something softer. "Andy, I'm falling for you," he said, voice rough, fast, hard, "and I don't want to stop." Silence stretched, filled only by the jingling of bells and the distant hum of conveyor belts. Then Holly smiled, a smile that lit up the workshop like sunrise. "Andy Nelson," she said gently, "you're terrible at subtlety." Andy's breath caught. "Is that a yes?" She stepped closer, her eyes shining. "It's a yes." And then she kissed him, soft, sweet, perfect, while the elves erupted into cheers so loud the nutcracker band switched to a victory march. "Finally," Jingleton crowed, tossing confetti like a deranged wedding planner. "True love in the workshop." Comet stuck his head through the doorway, antlers festooned with mistletoe. "About time, HR guy." Andy groaned, resting his forehead against Holly's. "I'm filing so many complaints." She laughed, breathless. "With HR." Andy grinned. "Exactly." As the chaos swirled around them, elves dancing, reindeer prancing, Santa booming with laughter, Andy realized something. This was home. Not just the workshop. Not just the magic. Holly. Always Holly. Chapter 13. Happily ever after with bells on. Christmas morning at the North Pole was a masterpiece of magic. Snowflakes drifted like lazy confetti. The elf city glittered under ribbons of dawn light, and the air hummed with the lingering thrill of Santa's successful delivery run. The workshop was quieter now, still buzzing, but in a softer, contented way, like a symphony winding down after its grand finale. Andy Nelson stood in the break room, cradling a steaming mug of cocoa, watching the snow swirl beyond the frosted windows. For the first time in weeks, his shoulders weren't knotted with stress. The sleigh had launched on time. The gifts had gone out. No glitter grenades had detonated mid-flight. And Holly Winters had kissed him twice if you counted the one under the aurora and the one in the middle of elf-induced chaos. Okay, maybe 3 times. But who was counting? Morning, HR guy, a voice drawled. Andy turned to see Comet lounging in the doorway, antlers festooned with tinsel like a festive crown. Santa says good work, Comet added, smirking. Also says you owe me for the sleigh ride assist. Andy groaned. You mean the public humiliation? Comet winked. Romance optics, kid. You're welcome. Before Andy could retort, another voice chimed in, warm, lilting, and capable of short-circuiting his brain. Is he still taking credit for our kiss? Holly asked, stepping into the room with a smile that made Andy forget how words worked. She wore a cozy red sweater, her auburn hair tumbling over her shoulders, and her cheeks were pink from the cold. Comet grinned. Absolutely. Holly laughed, shaking her head. You're incorrigible. Comet puffed out his chest. 8 centuries of charm. Andy muttered. Charm isn't the word I'd use. Comet winked again and trotted off, bells jingling like a victory march. Holly crossed the room, her smile softening as she handed Andy a mug of cocoa topped with whipped cream and a candy cane stir stick. Peace offering, she said. Andy chuckled, warmth flooding his chest. Thanks. They stood side by side, sipping cocoa in companionable silence, watching the snow drift like powdered sugar over the rooftops. Outside, elves were caroling, their voices rising in sweet harmony. Somewhere in the distance, Santa's laughter boomed like a holiday anthem. Holly tilted her head, studying Andy. So what happens now? Andy swallowed hard, setting down his mug. Now we figure it out. Her brows lifted, curious. Figure what out? Andy took a breath, his heart pounding like a drumline. Us. Holly's smile was gentle, steady. I was hoping you'd say that. Andy exhaled, relief and joy tangling in his chest. Holly, I meant what I said yesterday. I'm falling for you. Fast. Hard. And I don't want to stop. Her eyes softened, shimmering like starlight. Good, she whispered. Because I feel the same. Andy's breath caught. You do. She nodded, her smile radiant. Andy, I came here looking for something different, something joyful. And I found it. In this place, in this magic, but mostly in you. Andy stared at her, all flooding his chest. Holly. She stepped closer, her hand finding his warm and sure. So, what's next? Andy laughed softly, his heart soaring like a sleigh breaking through clouds. Next, we survive elf gossip. And maybe we make plans. Her smile widened. Plans? He grinned. Dinner. Movies. Cocoa without glitter in it. She laughed, the sound ringing like sleigh bells. Sounds perfect. Before Andy could kiss her again, the door burst open and Santa strode in, his red coat blazing, his blue eyes twinkling like starlight. Ho ho ho, he boomed, his belly shaking like a bowl of jelly. What's this? Lovebirds in my break room. Andy groaned. Sir, Santa wagged a finger, grinning. Don't you sir me, son. I told you, life's too short for maybes. Holly laughed, cheeks pink. He did say that. Santa winked. And look at you now. Joy on your faces, cocoa in your hands, and Christmas in your hearts. That's what it's all about. Andy chuckled, warmth flooding his chest. Thanks, Santa. Santa clapped him on the back hard enough to rattle his teeth. Good work, son. Both of you. Now go enjoy the day. You've earned it. With that, Santa swept out, humming jingle bells like a man who just orchestrated the universe's best rom-com. Later, Andy and Holly sat on the balcony overlooking the snowy expanse, wrapped in a blanket, sipping cocoa as the northern lights shimmered above like ribbons of green and violet. Elves caroled in the distance. Reindeer pranced under the stars. And Andy realized something. This wasn't just magic. It wasn't just Christmas. It was home. And Holly was part of it, always.